Now in Spain, the government is wrestling with labour market reform, something the International Monetary Fund says is not only essential but urgent. Our economics editor, David Tweed, is in Madrid. David, good morning. This is essential, yes?
That's what the IMF says, Mark. They say it's essential primarily because we've got something like 20% unemployment running here in Spain. And the IMF, the European Central Bank, many economists who I've been speaking to also here in Madrid over the last few days are talking about the need to get rid of some of the most protected labour laws in the entire European Union. They say that it's a hindrance, particularly for young companies, growing companies, to actually start employing people and get this economy back on the road. José Luis Fernandez was employed in Spain's construction industry before work dried up 2 years ago. This month, his gas was cut off. He couldn't pay the bill.
We have to make a choice. This month I don't pay the gas bill. Next month the electricity. The month after that I pay the utilities and half the rent on my house. That's the only way to make ends meet.
Spain's unemployment rate surged to just under 20% as the country sunk into the worst recession in 60 years. Youth unemployment is closer to 40%. That's why the government is trying to change the rules governing labour markets, among the most rigid in Europe. The changes centre on reducing costs for companies that now have to pay 45 days of wages for every year employed for workers who are made redundant. They're designed to encourage companies to hire more workers without fear of being saddled with extra costs should there be a downturn. They'll also incorporate lower social security costs. But the unions are up in arms, threatening to call a general strike.
The main point of conflict is everything that has to do with making layoffs cheaper. What I can say is that the differences between the employers and unions are significant. We've almost reached the point of no return.
The IMF says that reforming Spain's labour market needs to be done urgently. Business leaders agree.
Under
the labour laws as they stand, many businesses, especially the small ones, avoid hiring staff because that saves them from suffering the consequences of terminating a contract.
If the government can make law changes that do create jobs, that may make it easier for José Luis Fernandez and more than 4.5 million other unemployed Spaniards to pay their bills.
David, where are the negotiations standing now, then?
Mark, the government set a deadline of yesterday for employers and the unions to come up with an agreement about what sort of changes should be made to the laws. Now, that deadline passed and there's still been no agreement from either of those two parties. So what the government's doing now is it's saying, OK, we're going to come up with our own changes to the laws, and if you don't make any sort of agreement over the next week, we're going to make those changes to the laws by decree. Now, that could be very unpopular, and in doing so, the Prime Minister Zapatero risks provoking a general strike. It's extremely fraught here in Madrid at the moment.